are about to experience, Jackson Snyder presents. Direct from the Vero Essene Yahad, a Hebrew Nation radio original program. JSP is a variety show seeking out Jewish and Christian origins, religion, theology and history, and doing so in a fashion that is both educational and entertaining. Welcome to Jackson Snyder Presents.
Shalom, shalom, y'all. This is your brother Schruumkoff at the desk today, enjoying every aspect of this volunteer service. And that service I'm going to do now, you are about to listen to. It's Tammy, episode 5, part 2. Shalom, shalom.
I literally felt like I was connected to the Father, and all of a sudden my spirit went, as soon as fear came in, and I listened to that other voice, and literally fear came in, I literally felt my body disconnect from the other voice, what I say was the Father. The Father was speaking to me and giving me instructions. I literally felt my body disconnect from the Father, and now I'm engulfed by this fear that I am now obviously portraying out loud in, where everybody could see me. I was screaming and freaking out and hysterical. I lost my mind when that had happened. And, so what ended up happening is my brother didn't take off to leave me. My brother actually went and got a phone and called 911. So I didn't know this. And so the ambulance ended up showing up. And by the time the ambulance got there, when his eyes rolled back in the head, he was actually coming back alive. And I didn't realize that. So he slowly... in my hysteric, I'm screaming, not realizing that my son is now coming back alive. I was so hysterical that I didn't even realize he's actually coming back alive. He just took a breath, and now he's breathing, and he's coming back to life. And as he came back to life, as I'm screaming hysterically, he started making noise, and the noise is what stopped me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's back alive, and I'm freaking out. He was back alive. And my brother came back out at that time. And when he came back out, it was like within a minute or two, the ambulance showed up and came over and then took over the job. They ended up helicopter flying him to the children's hospital. And he ended up being in the hospital for like 3 days. But when they did tests on him to test him for whatever they test him for when somebody drowns, everything came back 100%, like he had not even drowned. Like he had not even been a drowned victim. Everything was 100%.
That's remarkable.
So, yes, it is. And that was such I could not wrap my head. The thing about that situation, I was in shock. I was in shock for probably a good month or two, maybe even 3 months, to be honest with you, from that situation. That was a very, very shocking situation for me. I was so happy, so thankful that I had my little boy back, but the feeling, the emotions that I had to go through and deal with were very hard emotions to have to now process, if that makes sense. So it took me a little while to go over that, but the one thing that I could not wrap my head around is that there was a audible voice that spoke to me. And when that other voice spoke to me, I literally felt myself disconnect from the Father and connect with this evil, like dark spirit. Like it was, I couldn't wrap my head around that. I could not wrap my head around it because it was such a physical feeling in the real realm. It was such an audible, clear voice from both voices that spoke to me that it took me a long time truly to try to wrap my head around that whole experience. It was quite an experience, and I talked to a few people about what I did, and people don't seem to receive things in the supernatural. If you want me to be honest with you, people do not receive things that happen in the supernatural very well. And when I saw the few people that I did tell my experience to, how it seemed to not affect them, in a positive way, I guess you could say. It didn't affect them in a positive way. It kind of just stifled, stuff like that just kind of stifled me out. And I really didn't talk about things that made people not like me, basically, because I really had no life. I really had no friends. I really my kids were my life. And that's really all that I focused on.
Well, you were driving everybody crazy.
Yeah, it was. I was driving everybody crazy. So that was my second supernatural experience. And I know that it sounds like it was a horrible experience. And yes, it was a horrible experience. But the fact that the Father spoke to me, or an angel, I don't know, but this audible voice spoke to me was so powerful to me. That experience, although I had to get over the trauma of it, that experience awakened me so much more awake, spiritually speaking, that I was almost not even functionable with other people. Like, I can't explain it, but the more spiritual things that happened to me, the more drawn from this world I became, and the more I wanted to not be in this world and wanted to be in this other realm that does exist here. There's another realm, a spiritual realm that does exist. When the Father says to walk in the Spirit, there's a place for us to actually walk here in the Spirit, But it really opened my eyes, going through the heaven experience when I surrendered my life, and going through the heaven experience, and then having that experience where an audible voice, like even as a small child, I talked to the Father and he could talk to me. And the thing is it was mostly telepathic. So that was one thing that I wanted to point out about those videos, is the way that they described where they went, the feelings that they described of where they went. On those videos that I sent you today, that is a real feeling. That is really how it is. They were definitely telling the truth, because I've been there and I've done that. When they talked about how when they would speak to the Father, they said it was telepathically. It is a telepathic way of speaking to the Father, and he speaks back to us telepathically. It's in a mind, it is in your mind, or however you want to describe it. It is definitely telepathically, but that was the first experience that I had where the Father actually spoke to me audibly, out loud, and I heard the voice loud and clear, crisp and calm. Like, I knew that it was the Father. I knew that immediately I needed to obey what this voice was saying to me. You know what I mean? Like I knew that this is who I should listen to. And I just did. And so that was the first time I had ever spoken or heard from the Father audibly. And that's why that was such a powerful moment, a powerful spiritual moment for me. And the more, like I said, the more spiritual, loud spiritual things that happened to me in the physical realm, the more pulled back I was from this world and did not want to be in this world anymore. Like, I know exactly what these women are talking about when they say that they don't want to go back here. I don't want to be here. I'll tell you right now, I do not want to be in this world. This world has never felt like my home. And I feel like today I was pondering on the experiences that I was telling you about from when I was a small child and I would leave my body. The feelings that I would have leaving my body, like I said, would be, it was scary, and coming back into my body was scary. But once I got out, it was the most wonderful time. It was so wonderful being out of my body. And I feel like I was having the same type of out-of-body experience, basically, that these people were having, because the way that they describe everything, that's a real feeling. So, and when you go out, if I could stay and not have to go back in my body, I would have preferred to stay where I was at when I was out of my body. Like, this is not my home. And I've never, even from a small child, I knew that this place that I have to exist in right now is not my home. And one of the people described it perfectly today on that show. I exist right now, obviously, in this physical realm, but I also exist in this spiritual realm. And I don't know how to balance them, because me personally, I would prefer to be in the spiritual realm and not have to exist at all in this physical realm. I don't want to be here. This is not my home. There is nowhere here in this world that I have to live in that is my home. And because I know that there's a better place, I know that there's something that is so wonderful out there that I exist here because I have to exist here because I'm here, but I definitely prefer to stay in a spiritual realm sense and not really exist here in this world. And it's a nonstop battle. It's a constant battle of trying to pull to this side rather than this side nonstop. And I'm not speaking in this world as in wanting to live in any type of a sin. There is nothing more important to me than to live and behave and do. I want to nothing more than to be pleasing to my Father. I just want to be the best little girl that I can be for him. There's no sin in this world that draws me in any kind of a way. That is one thing that the Father does not have, that the enemy does not have over me, is to tempt me with any kind of sinful activities here. I have no interest in displeasing my Father at all. I just want to please him. And so that's not, my battles with the enemy are not those types of battles. My battles with the enemy is other things, of him trying to torture me in my mind, basically, is all in my mind, battle in the mind that I have of things that the enemy does to me. But my preference is that I don't exist in this world, that I only exist in the spiritual realm, and that's where I would prefer to be. And it's gotten to the point now where I'm so aware of my surroundings. This was another thing that I saw somebody mention in the video. I'm so aware of my surroundings that when I enter into stores, I know everything about everybody in that store. I can see everybody. So when I go into a store, like I literally have the Walmart grocery store memorized. I have one set of food that I get because I eat clean. I do not eat unclean food. I know what's clean and I know what's unclean, biblically clean, and what's unclean. I will not put anything that is unclean in my body ever. I do not feed my children anything that is unclean ever. There is no cheating for me. I don't go to restaurants because I worked in restaurants, and restaurants are dirty and they're unclean, and you never know what is going on back in that kitchen. I can tell you that right now. I worked in the restaurant. I know what goes on behind closed doors in a restaurant. I do not eat out. I will never go through a drive-through. We don't eat anything except for the food that I cook because I know that it's clean. And I have the stores memorized 100% exactly what I'm getting. And I will go in that store, and for me personally, I have to keep my head down, because if I make eye contact with somebody, I instantly know what's going on in their life. I instantly know. Everywhere that I go, I can read my environment instantly. It's just instantly. And if I start looking up, all these floods of all this stuff will just start hitting me. This person and this person and this person, and it's too much for me. I can't take on all the world's problems. Too much for me. And everybody has so many problems, and I know what their problems are as soon as I come in as soon as I walk into a store full of people, a room full of people. Anywhere that I go, I know everybody's problems, and I don't want to know their problems, because I can't bear their problems. I can't bear them. You know what I mean? Not that I don't want to help them. Of course, I would love to help everybody if I could, but I can't. I'm just a person. You know what I mean? So I have these issues where it's come to the point where I'm so. One of the things that somebody told me a long time ago, and I don't believe this is being truthful, but I understand what it means more now than before. Somebody told me, Tammy, you can't be so spiritually minded that you're no earthly good. You can't be that way. And it made absolutely no sense to me at that time when they said that. I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? You would prefer to be, you would prefer to be part of in this world and worldly minded? No way. I have to be on the Father. I have to be spiritually minded at all times, and but it's got to the point now where there's the world. There is so much darkness in this world. It is so hard for me to find the goodness. I have the hardest time finding goodness, because the world is so overrun now with evil and evil intentions and evil thoughts and just worldly things, lust and selfishness and gluttony and just all these horrible things that are just I can't even describe it, but I'm so full aware of it that I have come to the point where I can't be in places. Like I just can't function in this world. It's gotten to the point where it's so loud to me that I can't even function in this world. Now, I had mentioned before that I can go out and I can feed the homeless. Those are just about the only people that I can really relate with, if you want me to be honest with you. Yeah, I can sense their problems, but when I'm out in the woods, it's maybe 4 or 5 or 6 of them, maybe 10 of them, and I can individually focus on all of them, and I can individually sort out things while I'm with them. But I see everything about them too, but at least it's not 100 people in a store overwhelming me. You know what I mean? I know everybody. I mean, when I'm with the homeless people, I know who they are. But when the Holy Spirit takes over, I all of a sudden have this unconditional love, and that unconditional love just immediately takes me out of that place of sensitivity, of not focusing on those things, but actually loving these people. That's another thing. Unconditional love is what I experienced in my spiritual places when I went to heaven, when I realized the voice of the Father and heard the voice of the Father. There was this unconditional love. That is the love that does not exist here on our realm, in the worldly realm. And I've experienced that. I know how to unconditionally love somebody, and I don't even have to try. Like, it just all of a sudden overwhelmingly comes over me, And all I want to do is love this group of people that is sitting before me. And whatever is around me, like whatever presence, I guess, that is on me when I'm with these people, they can sense it. And it doesn't matter how evil and horrible and whatever they're living their life as, it doesn't matter. All that leaves them. And all these people, you know, whatever the group is, you know, the homeless group is, whatever the group is, they trust me in a way like I'm their mom and they're my children. And one of the biggest things that I sense about the people out in the homeless state is I can sense that they were never truly loved by their parents, by their mother. They don't know what a mother's love is. And I can love them with this unconditional mother's love, and they know that. They don't see me as this girl, you know, this girl that they don't see me in any kind of a weird way at all. They immediately are able to embrace that overwhelming feeling of love and embrace the moment of that time that I'm there, because I'm usually only with a group of people for 2 to maybe 3 days at the most, and then the Father moves me to the next location, the next location, the next location. And I never know who the people are going to be or anything like that. It's just, I just show up, I start setting up camp, and all of a sudden people show up, and that's just the way that it is. I never have to go out and look for people. They come to me. They're drawn to me. Somehow they're drawn to me, and they come to me. And it's just the way that it is. But that's another thing, though, that I have, is I can enter into this realm where I can unconditionally love people. I just can't love everybody unconditionally at Walmart or, you know, big places with large groups of people. I get so flooded by everybody's issues that I can't process it. I can't process it. If one individual person walked up to me and wanted to have a conversation with me, I could do that. But I don't even know who to pick, you know. I don't pick anybody anyways. It's always the Father that draws somebody towards me. So I understand, like in that video where you didn't make it to the end of the video, but the guy, there was a guy on there he was an atheist, he was a doctor or philosopher or something like that, but he was an atheist, and he ended up having an ND, and after he had that experience, he had the same problem as me. He couldn't function anymore in the real world because the experience was so powerful to him that he felt like he was still stuck halfway in that realm and halfway in the worldly realm, and he couldn't process it. And that's how I feel. I feel like I'm halfway in the spiritual realm, and I'm halfway in this world I got to exist in, and I can't function. You know, I can't function like how the world wants you to function, basically. How people.
I think a lot of us kind of feel like we weren't really made for this world. And in Hebrews 13, it talks about, on this earth, there's no permanent dwelling place. We have a different dwelling place. We're not home right now.
Right, and I agree with that. This is not my home. I don't feel at home. It doesn't matter where I live. This is not my home. And
you may contact us at Jackson Snyder Presents at this email address, veroyahad@gmail.com. That is veroyahad@gmail.com. And let me remind you, you are listening to Jackson Snyder Presents with your host tonight, Bogdan G. Schruumkoff. Thank you for listening. We'll be right back. Jackson Snyder Present is back. join us now for more of this interesting discussion.
I just have the hardest time trying to survive where I'm at right now. You know, I don't want to die or anything like that. I want to be here for my children. But if I fall asleep and I end up dying in my sleep, I am going to be so happy to be not here anymore. You know what I mean? I will be so happy to not be here anymore, because I would just prefer not to be here. But I wanted to give you one more spiritual experience that happened to me, and it's a short one, so it'll be short and sweet, but I wanted to tell you one more thing to give, you know, to try to change this over to more of a positive experience.
Good, because our time has just run out, so please do. We want the positive.
Okay, so when I was out in Colorado this summer, all my boys, I came down to North Carolina, I picked up my other boys, so I actually had 6 of my boys, because my oldest son lives in Colorado, so I have 5 acres of land out in Colorado that I own. Out in the desert part of Colorado, right on the border of New Mexico, literally right in front of the Rio Grande River. So I went and picked up my boys. I brought them back out to Colorado so that we could camp on my property for the summer. And so that was our summer, you know, that was my summer, this past summer that just passed. So can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
C. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So we're out in the desert, and we're having a wonderful time going down to the river, beautiful crystal clear water. Literally, before I bought this property, when I saw the Rio Grande River, I literally felt like I was in the movie Land Before Time from when we were kids, the Land Before Time movie. And I just went into the paradise that they were trying to get to through the whole movie. It was so beautiful. The river is so beautiful. The water is so crystal clear, and it's just such a beautiful. I'll send you pictures tomorrow so you know what I'm talking about. But anyways, so we're swimming every day in the river and stuff like that, and it got to a point where I knew that I needed to warn the boys that they needed to watch out for rattlesnakes, because, you know, in the desert, there's rattlesnakes. It's not like Florida. It's not like, because that's where we're from. It's not like North Carolina. You're going to see a rattlesnake, and it's probably going to be, you know, every other day. This is the desert, and this is where the rattlesnakes are, you know? So of course we did. We were seeing rattlesnakes left and right, which, you know, I already warned them. I made sure that they knew all the rules, because I had been living out west for the last 6 or 7 years, so I was used to it. It was normal for me. It was normal for my son, AJ, to watch the ground and, you know, watch bushes that you go by and stuff like that. So I laid out all the rules, so it was done. So this specific time, we went to go swimming at the river, and generally I would not let them walk down the mountain by themselves to get to the water, because I wanted to make sure, you know, that they were watching where they were walking, because when you're climbing down the mountain, you know, generally snakes can like be tucked away and you won't see them and stuff like that. And there's a specific rattlesnake out west that is called a Mojave green. Does anybody know what a Mojave green is? Nope. Okay. Well, a Mojave green is a light green rattlesnake, and it's a big, fat rattlesnake that's very, very aggressive. It's not like a regular rattlesnake. A regular rattlesnake will sit there and watch you and stuff like that, but you don't generally have to worry about it chasing after you or attacking you. So this specific time, we had already went to the river multiple times. When we got to the river, I wasn't quite ready to go down yet. So the kids were like, "Can we go down? We'll watch for rattlesnakes," you know? And I was like, okay, I'll be right there. You know, so I let them go ahead of me. They were probably ahead of me, maybe 20 feet, and they had already went around the corner. So they're going to head into the river. I step out, you know, literally like a minute later, and I start walking down. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so I start walking down, and they're already around the corner where I can't even see them anymore. So as I'm walking, I'm always thanking the Father. I'm always talking to the Father. So I'm having a conversation with the Father and just so happy about where I'm at and happy to be with my kids and just, you know, walking. So as I'm walking, literally, this is the second time now ever in my life, audible voice spoke and said, "Your children are in danger of a snake." Like, or your kids are going to get bit by a snake, something like that. It was an audible voice. And literally right at that moment, I threw my hands up in the air and I said, "I come against the devil right now." And I just started doing spiritual warfare. And lo and behold, in the middle of me doing spiritual warfare, my hands up in the air and I'm coming against the devil, my 13-year-old son comes around this corner and says, "Mom, there's a rattlesnake. And it's a green one." So I knew right away what kind of a rattlesnake this was.
Wow.
So I ended up running around the corner, coming over there where they were, and I was like, "Where's it at? Where's it at?" You know, so I'm telling the kids, stay back, just point where it's at, you know, so I can see it, you know. So I look underneath this big, gigantic, huge boulder, and this trail that we have to go on is a pretty thin trail. It's not like this big, wide trail. We're literally like hiking down a mountain to get to the river, and it's about 100 feet high of a wall of a mountain that we hike down. I'll send you a picture of the snake too tomorrow. But anyways, I look underneath there, and it is the biggest, fattest Mojave green rattlesnake, and that is, as long as I've been in the desert, I've seen multiple rattlesnakes, but I've never seen a Mojave green because they're so well hidden, I guess. I don't know. I just had been warned the whole time I was out in the desert. Watch out for the green ones, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, it was a Mojave green, and it was big, and it was fat, and it was mad. It was mad that we were in its domain.
So you actually saw that snake?
Oh, I saw it. Oh, yeah, I got a picture of it and everything. I'll send it to you.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But, so, not to be, I'm not a animal person to torture or kill an animal, but I knew that snake needed to go because that was our path that we needed to go down to get to the river every day. Like every other day we'd go to the river or whatever, and I needed that snake to go. So my son ended up, my oldest son, who's 18, right back to my RV and grabbing the 22 that we had in there and came back, and he freaking tried to shoot that thing. He shot it like 5 times, and it still crawled back into some hole into the thing. But we never saw it again. It was gone after that. We every time we got up there, we made sure we paid super close attention now that we knew that snake was there. But it ended up disappearing in the rocks, and we never saw it again. But that was the second time that a audible voice spoke out loud, and it warned me that my kids were approaching a snake. And I was so on fire for the Father, like I was praising him. I can't tell you how on fire I was after that experience. For the rest of the day, for even a couple months after that, I could not stop telling these people this story. Everywhere that we went at that point, I was like, even one of the people that grew up out in Colorado, I told him it was a Mojave green. He's like, "There's no Mojave greens in Colorado." I'm like, "I'm telling you right now." And I showed him a picture. I was like, "Yeah, this was in the Rio Grande River." The Mojave greens, I guess, like to live closer to the water or whatever. So that's why it was closer to the river. It was just regular rattlesnakes that would be on the property and stuff like that. But, I was so on fire because, I mean, I was 24 years old when I heard the audible voice speak to me the first time. I'm 47 now. Well, was I 47? I was 46 at summertime. I just turned 47. So I was still 46, but this is, 20 some odd years later, and I finally heard the voice again. And that's what was so powerful to me. It was so powerful. It woke me up so awake again to hear the voice, to hear that voice speak to me again. I was finally like in a presence or in a place spiritually where I could actually physically hear the Father or an angel. I don't never really know exactly who the voice was, but I attribute it to the Father.
Well, it was an agent of the Father at any rate. Because you heard another voice, and that was the voice of, must have been the devil or snake demon telling you he's dead. He's dead.
Yeah, that was definitely that whole experience. Nobody will ever be able to really truly feel the sensation, what I went through in those experiences, because it's only an experience that you would actually have to physically experience.
Sure.
To understand, to understand that level of experience. You have to be there. You have to experience. And then once you do, you'll never be the same again. I'm telling you right now, you'll never be the same again. And one of the things that I was pondering in my head, throughout this week, and this has been something that's been going on now for a while now, is I've been doing a lot of studies on the New Testament, and I don't really understand why the New Testament says that you have to ask things in the name of Jesus, or in the name of Yeshua, in the name of, the Messiah. Because any situation that I've ever been in, when I went to the Father, I never had to say, to give you an example, when I went through that whole situation with the panic attack, and I realized that I had to go to the Father to get set free of this, I never had to go to the Father and say, Abba, set me free in the name of Yeshua.
Yeah,
I never had to say that.
I think that
I just had to go to the Father.
If you're living the life, you're in Yeshua. I mean, you can take that literally and say that 3 times in your prayer all you want, but it's not the saying, it's the life.
Yeah,
you're walking and living in the name of Yeshua. You're walking in Him.
And Yeshua's message was he was always telling us to turn to the Father. When he was in the desert, he said to Satan, he said, "You shall worship Yahuwah your Elohim, and Him only shall you serve."
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a real I don't know. I don't understand this whole worshiping and serving the Messiah. He was, in my opinion, he was a prophet, a man that the Father sent to give us a message, and that message was to point us to the Father. His message was always to point us to the Father, unless you get into certain books and then the words are twisted and it changes all around.
Well, I would imagine that most of the people in our group believe just like you do. There was Yeshua has some divinity, but he always directs worship, prayer back to the Father.
It's always to the Father. Yeah. I never scream out in Yeshua's name. It was always, when my son drowned, I looked up to the sky and I said, "God, help me, show me what I got to do." I didn't say, "God, help me in Jesus' name." You know what I mean? Like, I never had to do that anytime I've ever went to the Father. And that was something that was really confusing to me in church, when I surrendered my life over, it was this whole thing about all the worship songs were worshiping Jesus and everything was about Jesus. And I'm like, but what about the Father? That's who I've talked to my whole life. What about the Father? You know, and it wasn't until just recently, just in the last 3 years, that I realized that, you know, we understand that the Word, that the Bible was made by man. I didn't realize that before because the church tells you that it's the inspired Word of God, you know? So I didn't know that before. But as I read the scriptures myself and started praying and asking the Father for truth, the Father would show me, you know, truth. And I realized that there's so many things that are messed up in our Bible that don't make sense, and it doesn't resonate with my spirit. And you know, I worshiped Jesus, but I don't believe that and that was only because I was misunderstanding what was going on from the church.
Well, let me tell you something about that, and that is that the word worship in the New Testament, it's not what we think worship is. To worship somebody simply meant in those days, at least in the original language, to venerate or to bow to. Or I think literally it means bow before. Yes, pro starts with pro. So it's a bowing before. It is like in a way, it's like we shake hands today or we greet each other. It's a little more than that, though. They fall and worship him. They give him obeisance. He's the master. It's not a matter of, I think that this is one of the changes I've certainly had in my life, is coming to realize what Yahshua said about himself and about his Father. Is Yahshua God? Christians believe so. He never said that, and he doesn't
right.
say
I don't
that.
believe that.
He said, yes, there you go. You got it, Melissa.
I don't believe that. I believe
oneself. Prostrate oneself is what proskution means. I can't remember it right now. But yeah, really was an exciting discovery for me. And it really changed my whole mind about things. Well, if you think Yahshua is Yahweh, well, with Yahshua is divine in some way, we just don't understand how. I think the best words that reflect Yahshua's feeling for himself is that he's the Son of Man. And the Son of Man calls himself that 150 times in the New Testament. The Son of Man indicates a person like Enoch, an intermediary, one who can discuss things with angels, one that can rebuke angels and devils, one that is in between the Father and humankind. That's a lot better way, in my understanding, is Son of Man. And you only really know about Son of Man by reading one section in the book of Enoch, which explains exactly what Yahshua is calling himself. Hey, are you going to come preach one of these days?
I can. Well,
I'm going to give you a date, and I'll help you with it if you want to. You're a good speaker.
Okay, yeah. Am I?
Yes, you're good. You're a little long-winded, but it's very interesting. A lot of people are. All right, I'm going to set you a date, and we'll work on it. And in the meantime, I certainly would like to lift you up with our companions here. And let's do that, and then we'll go to contemplation in our own places. Father Elohim, you know this woman better than we do. But we thank you for sending her as a witness to some of the things that the Son of Man might even be into. The ability to move between the dimensions, between heaven and earth. I pray that you would augment that gift in her. Yes, she already feels peculiar and she already feels like a misfit. But if you augment that gift in her that she's already got, then you will bring a lot of joy and understanding and misunderstanding to those of us who seek a higher way. And that's especially what I want to thank you for tonight, as well as for preserving her children and preserving her way in these almost 50 years of her life, so many times escaping the demon of death and her children as well. Yah bless her real good. Bless her really good with the attributes of Yeshua and some of his powers. We pray, amen.
Amen.
Okay, you guys.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to tell you that if there's any time that, like during the week, that I can join you with your group, I would love to talk about things.
We have an event calendar online. It's yahadevents.com. We have something just about every other night. Yeah, we'd be great to have.
I would love to join through.
Okay. I'll send you some more information too, but there at yahadevents.com, you can see what's coming up. And on the weekends, our services, you can see who's speaking, what times everything are on, and dates, and some other things like that. And my friends who have been on here tonight, Yahweh bless you too. What a great, quiet audience. They're quiet because they want to hear everything you say.
Mm-hmm. I'll be thinking about it all day tomorrow, all the stuff that I learned and heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even Melissa might come out. Good night, y'all. You have been listening to Jackson Snyder Presents on Hebrew Nation Radio.
You take everything you want to, making up the rules for bacon on your plate. And your policies are busted, locked away behind the rusted water gate. Oh, Tin Man, show some heart. Oh, Tin Man, show some love. Is this everything you wanted? The sensation you were looking for? Through your meddling, the heart and soul of everything is gone. Oh, Tin Man, show some heart. Oh, Tin Man, show some love. You take everything you want to, making up the rules for bacon on your plate. and your policies are busted, locked away behind the rusted water gate.